What are some of the things that your dad really harped on to make you want to become committed to the sport?
It was
Or even
just
like even coaches?
my coaches really like. I think the coaches were big. Between like Damian Logan was an interesting coach. I don't know. I mean, he was just he was more like a technical like wizard guy, and I guess I kind of like Damien made me want to be good at wrestling through like just like what he'd show. Like I don't know, like watching Damien wrestle, like he was so fluid, and it was like that made me want to get to that point of wrestling where I looked like that, where people would look at me and be like, "Wow, like this guy's like a fluid wrestler. He's really good. He knows his position, knows his positions, everything like that." But in terms of what made me want to be just a good wrestler, it was really like Filato. That guy was a badass. Like he was jacked. He was a shredded, ripped, like 200 pounds. And I was like this short, like fat, like 160, 190 pound kid, in those years. And it was just like, I was like, damn, I want to be this guy. And if he loves wrestling this much and wrestling like got him to here, like shit, where can it get me? Like that's where I want to be. And he was just a man. He was just like a dude's dude. He was a guy's guy. Like he was a badass. That's like when I think of a badass and I like where I want to like envision myself as being. Like I still am like, I'm not even like sniffing the ground that like Coach Filato, Chris Filato, like walked on. Like that dude was the man, and that was kind of my like whole inspiration behind it. I loved that guy. I wanted to be like him, and if wrestling was what got him there, I just had to follow those footsteps, and I just wanted to be better than him too at the same time. So that was kind of a
Yeah.
big like hunkering for me for wrestling. But in terms of my dad just is like my dad did, so like I said, he didn't wrestle, so there wasn't really an overlap there, which was like interesting. But my dad still to this day watched and watches more wrestling than I do. My dad like loves it, and it really wasn't anything that had to do with wrestling. It was just my dad is just such a committed guy, and like everything he does in like the right way. Like I said, like my dad was the one that wouldn't let me quit, and it's the same concept as like my dad was my dad was in the utilities workers union for 40 years. He worked one job for 40 years, and he worked an outdoor union job at like a water treatment plant, and like dude, I went there. That place smells like shit. Literally, it's a water treatment plant. He's outside half the time, and the freezing cold. And when there's like something like a blizzard or something, he's got to like stay overnight at the plant. And it's like he had every reason to like complain or like hate his life or do anything or just try to go somewhere else. And it's just my dad is the biggest like stick through kind of guy. My dad does not complain. My dad, knows what he has to do and does his work. Yeah, and that's just the way it is. And my dad was just fully gung ho and supporting me in whatever I wanted to do, and he really wanted to see me succeed. He didn't want to see me fail, and he didn't want to see me upset, obviously, but he didn't want to see me quit more than anything else. Because I guess at the end of the day, he knew that this could be something great for me, and I'll thank him every day for how right he was. But that was the biggest thing that my dad gave me. It was just you got to see things through, and if at that point you're going to see them through, you might as well do a good job in doing it. You're not going to half-ass you're not going to half-ass something that you just are going to you're going to go all the way through with. That's just you're going to waste your time. And it'd be like I'll be damned if I waste my time. That was like another thing. Yeah, like my dad always said, he'd take me to a tournament and it'd be like I'd be damned if I'll waste my time, but I'll be damned if you waste my time. Like it's just one of those things, dude. You're going to do it all the way and don't stop.
Well, wrestling dads especially, and knowing your dad personally, his whole thing was he had like a purpose behind it. He wants the best for you, obviously. Any
Yeah.
dad wants the best for you. And they're willing to pour all the resources, time, effort, money
Yeah.
into that kid for him to reach his max potential. Every parent wants their kid to be great, but they see something that you're capable of doing without you realizing it at a young age.
Yeah.
And making you harp on that narrative and commit, that's the fulfilling part for them, is the effort and the investment that they put in you. Like
Yeah.
my dad was the same exact way. He poured all his time, resources, and effort into me and Mickey just so we could find greatness in our own sense. And
Yeah.
we always fought him thinking like, oh, maybe wrestling's not the way. but he allowed us to open up that door and see like there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
And especially surrounded, like you talked about Damien, but it putting us in Apex, shout out
Yeah.
Apex Wrestling. Those dudes were the standard. Like you got Eric and Damien and Alex Karninski. Those guys were absolute badasses, and they were great role models for us to live through. Because you see these dudes like Norgard, for example. Eric Norgard went to Columbia. You probably was he a little inspiration for you to go there too?
Yeah, man. I did. I actually he wasn't. He was kind of he went on his little like coaching hiatus kind of around the time we were looking to like we were looking for colleges. But I got in contact with Norgard, and I mean I know he helped me with like the process and like things they wanted to see and things that they wanted their like applicants to do. And yeah, absolutely a huge impact, dude. I mean the guy was an absolute stud in high school. I mean, what, 4-time state finalist and like 2-time champion. And the only, one year he didn't, the other one of the years he didn't get a state championship was only because he was injured. Like, and I mean, this dude like wanted to go to Columbia, so it was like I knew like the recipe was there, man. And it's just you just got to replicate it. And I think Eric is I think he's a great dude. And I mean, beyond that, I mean, MBA from Rutgers. Now he works in I think what is he, global equity now? I mean,
Something like that.
he's an absolute all-star. And now he's come back to coach. Now that he's like got his whole, he's has his kids and they're a little more like, him and the wife and the kids are all like self-sufficient now. He's coming back to coach wrestling again. Like how much of a fucking badass is that guy? Like he's the fucking
Yeah, he's the
man.
man. Yeah, and the one cool thing being surrounded with like especially Apex, I think the one thing that really hit home with me, especially when reflecting back on it now, is the system that they brought through their club. Like you
Yeah.
go to like when you were doing privates with Eric, you would do your 9-tilt series,
Yeah.
right? And it was like it was a progression to an outcome. It's like you have 9 different alternatives for you to get bonus points. With Damien, it was his movement, his hand fighting, and his positional techniques, and it was all a system to get you what you wanted.
Yeah.
And it, like looking back on it now, anytime you're on a road to success, there's always a system that's going to get you there. And then on top of it, what they also harped on was a standard. Like you got to be a tough kid. You got to set the tone. You got to be aggressive. You got to go
Yeah.
out there to be a winner. And they would break all that down for you, and you had an execution plan to find that success that you wanted.